Alex Pereira versus Jamal Hill is happening for UFC 300, and there are ways that both guys could beat each other, and let's go through the keys to victory for both fighters. This time, we're going to start with Jamal Hill, the underdog, and how he can beat Alex Pereira. So firstly, Jamal Hill's southpaw stance is going to be key for him. Pereira has shown throughout his entire MMA career so far that he's less active against someone who takes the southpaw stance. He's way more active against someone who's orthodox. So when a fighter keeps his right hand forward and left hand back, Pereira's signature techniques become harder to land. We're talking about the rear leg kick on the outside, where after attacking the outside of the lead foot of his opponent, when you're in southpaw, that gets taken away. Now he can only land it on the inside of the leg, which becomes easier to check. Just turning your leg and shin inward becomes an easier and more natural motion. And his devastating left hook also becomes trickier to land due to Hill's southpaw stance, allowing him to trap Pereira's lead hand from being used. So at that point, Pereira has to find a way to angle his left hook around Jamal Hill's lead hand, which becomes trickier and easier to see. So if he's going to fire out over it, he's going to parry away Hill's lead hand and then throw the left hook. All of this becomes a lot more telegraphed and easier to feel out for Jamal Hill. But again, this is only going to be a thing when they're in opposite stances of each other. Taking the southpaw stance is going to make them both opposite of each other, which is going to open up both of their power hands, so Jamal Hill's left and Pereira's right. But Jamal Hill's left straight is one of his most confident punches that he throws. And we know that Pereira doesn't like to move his head too much, especially when he's moving backwards, which is going to be a big thing in this fight. Yuri Prochazka's blitz against Pereira was definitely a showcase of that. And it was also showed throughout the Israel Adesanya fights as well. Pressure is big for both fighters, but because of this inactivity from Pereira when he's fighting southpaws, you saw this when he fought Israel Adesanya, you saw this when he fought Yuri Prochazka, whenever they took the southpaw stance as they're switching, Pereira was throwing a lot less, which is going to give Jamal Hill more time to work, therefore set up his kill shots. So southpaw Jamal Hill is going to be way more dangerous for Alex Pereira to fight. And here's the other thing, when they're both in the opposite stances of each other, Pereira will also be encouraged to attack through the opening with his right straight, which could get him caught on the way in. The reason is because of the way he moves his feet while throwing the right straight. Pereira will often throw the punch before moving both of his feet forward after, like he's hopping forward. This is a big risk to take because if he gets timed and misses his punch, he will hop into one of those kill shots that Jamal Hill is going to be waiting to catch him with. So if Hill reads this correctly, forcing out the right straight from Alex Pereira, he could time a crazy power shot to knock Alex Pereira out. Pereira will also hop with his jabs a lot of times. He will either move straight forward or with a slight left angle, but he can absolutely get KO'd for doing this. In fact, both fighters, which I'm going to mention in the Pereira breakdown as well, both fighters do this. The other kind of punch that Pereira likes to throw in this kind of exchange is surprisingly the jab, and he has an interesting head position when he throws it. So first, as Hill will be trapping the lead hand, or even just probing with his lead, extending his lead arm in front of Pereira's lead hand, what Pereira likes to do, he will guide his lead hand toward the trap and then redirect his jab directly at Hill's face, making it seem like to the opponent that he's hand fighting with them, he's playing that game with them, but instead he's just tricking them. So first he steps his foot on the inside of the lead foot of his opponent, then he also leans his head on the inside as well, putting his entire body past his opponent's lead hand on the inside. Hill can time this with his left straight or overhand as he moves his head on the outside, because remember, Pereira is stepping his foot on the inside, giving Hill the outside angle already, exactly what he needs to line up his power left. So Hill gets his head on the outside of the jab and clobbers Pereira with his left hand. He can also backstep for a check right hook, right, moving his feet away from Pereira and throwing out that winging hook over Pereira's shoulder. Right, that same shoulder with the jab. Hill can easily time one of those long-range right hooks right over that, catching the temple. Pereira often drops his jab, which will expose his chin for Hill's counter. He does this most of the time when he throws jabs. But if he brought it back straight into position, it'd be hard for Jamal Hill to even find this counter on him. But you've probably already noticed, whenever he throws that check right hook, he brings both of his shoulders back, chest forward, and it's just a huge telegraph. It could be seen pretty easily by Pereira, even if he makes a mistake. So shortening up the hook, minimizing the telegraph is going to be very important for Jamal Hill. Now here's the other thing. Hill is not one to shoot takedowns, but neither was Izzy, and he has success against Alex Pereira wrestling with him. So Hill can probably give up this weird pride to be the better striker and use his wrestling to strengthen his chances here. He can beat Pereira without his wrestling for sure, but it's without question that his chances of winning increases if he does shoot takedowns. It can keep Alex Pereira guessing at all times. Mixing up the striking with the takedowns is a very basic and effective way for wrestlers or even strikers to find different opportunities and openings to catch their opponent. It can lower the hands of Alex Pereira, making his head easier to hit. His squared stance and hips is a big reason as to why his leg kicks work the way they do. It's very hard to see his leg kicks, and one big reason is because of that stance. But every single stance has a pro and con to them. It's a clear target to the body to push him backwards and therefore put pressure on Pereira, which will get Jamal Hill a bit of an advantage. And honestly, this can go vice versa. Even if you're a striker in this game, it's going to be beneficial to fake takedowns. At least one or two, not to commit with them, but just to give the look in order to find an opening for an uppercut or a left hook over the lowered guard. There's a lot of different kind of openings that you can create by just simply faking takedowns, and you don't need to be a wrestler to do that. Everybody at this level has wrestled somewhat, at least being capable of faking a double leg. And I do think Jamal Hill would have some real success here if he fakes takedowns, or even shoots and commits and tries to get Pereira to the ground, because he might be the better wrestler of the two. And here's the other thing, both fighters like to pressure their opponents backwards, and Hill's constant chase of the outside foot, right, getting his lead foot on the outside of his opponent's lead foot, creates openings for him to land that big left straight. Well, he chases that constantly with a wide stance, active movements, and this is always going to force Pereira to move. He has to move around to not get opened up, but Hill needs to keep that movement going instead of slowing it down like he gradually does. The other thing though for Hill is that he can use the important left push kick to make this process faster. Pereira's stance is squared, his body isn't sideways, so it's a clear big target to get kicked and pushed backwards. The closer Pereira is up against the fence, the better the chances of Jamal Hill landing one of his big power shots are. And by doing this, he's going to be able to dictate the distance between them two, because we do know that Jamal Hill's punches are usually a lot longer, or he commits a lot longer than Alex Pereira does. Like if you look at Pereira's left hook, he can throw them at different ranges, but we've been often seeing him landing them close range in the UFC against Yuri Prochazka, against Israel Adesanya. The one against Strickland was longer, but in a state of being pressured or even panicked, the range I believe is going to be easier for Jamal Hill to dictate. Therefore, pulling away from it and then countering Alex Pereira with some big long punch of his own, putting him down. Now, the last and very, very important thing is Jamal Hill has to lower his chin, and he has to put his guard up more often. His chin is reaching the skies just naturally, is how he stands. It's very scary to fight Alex Pereira and giving your chin to him that many times in a fight. Every single time Jamal Hill throws his hands, he drops them and lifts his chin up. That's going to be a very big thing I'm going to be talking about in the Pereira breakdown, and how wide he throws some of his punches too. So those are the keys to victory for Jamal Hill to defeat Alex Pereira. And for the next video, I'm going to be talking about Alex Pereira's chances and how he defeats Jamal Hill. That's going to come up tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications.